People say business is really difficult. No, business is actually very easy. If you learn how to interview, you learn how to run meetings, you learn how to manage conflict, you learn how to run projects, you learn how to manage priorities, you learn how to delegate, you learn how to coach people, you learn how to do one-on-one coaching. If you learn the skills of leading and developing people, business is really easy.
I'm Damon Lemby, and this is the Learn It All podcast, the show for leaders who know that lifelong learning can be your ultimate advantage. Joining me in a moment is Cameron Herold. Cameron learned leadership in the trenches of fast-growing companies. He realized that business isn't hard, it's just taught poorly, and most leaders never get the training and the coaching they really need, so he set out to change that. Cameron helped grow 1-800-GOT-JUNK from 14 employees to over 3,100 employees. When he started, they were at $2 million in revenue, and when he left, it was all the way up to $106 million in revenue. And he eventually founded the COO Alliance, which is the top global community for CEOs and second-in-command leaders. He's a 6-time author, keynote speaker, and executive coach who also developed the Invest in Your Leaders program, which is teaching the core skills that most leaders never learn. In our conversation, we discuss several great topics. We talk about why every leader's number one responsibility is to grow their people, because real leadership is about getting results through your people, and that only happens when you develop their skills and their confidence. I love what Cameron says about delegation. He says you must learn to delegate everything except your genius, and how most leaders stay stuck doing the work that they should be coaching others to own. How Cameron uses situational leadership, leading people differently based on their skills and commitment for each specific task, and even when the same team member may need different styles for different projects. And the mindset shift every leader needs to make, which is moving from doing the work yourself to building a team that can do the work better and faster than you ever could. You say a lot of times that a leader's real responsibility, number one job, is to grow your people. What triggered that in you to realize it was so important?
I kind of grew up as an entrepreneur. I'd always been running all these entrepreneurial ventures, but when I was 19, I was awarded a franchise of a group called College Pro Painters. And in the training at College Pro Painters, we were told that a leader's job is to get results through others. And the only way we can get through results through others is to grow their skills and their confidence so that they can do more. And because College Pro became the largest residential house painting company on the planet, they were very good at recruiting, onboarding, and developing people. I ended up on the very senior leadership team of that company. And every year we had to hire and train 800 franchisees. And then in 6 weeks, they had to go out and recruit, hire, and train 8,000 students to paint houses. So you just become operationally world-class at the recruiting, interviewing, and the development of people. And then, that was just my whole idea of my job was to grow people.
You must have some amazing stories going back in the day to get yourself to being world-class around that, because interviewing and recruiting is not easy right off the bat.
Well, it's like anything though. Like I've said that. It's funny, I use the baseball analogy, and I used to play baseball. If you sent your kid off to play Little League baseball and you didn't teach him how to hold the bat and how to toss the ball and how to catch the ball, they'd come home from baseball and go, "Daddy, baseball sucks." It's like, no, Johnny, you suck at baseball. And I think the same is true in business. Is people say business is really difficult. No, business is actually very easy. If you learn how to interview, you learn how to run meetings, you learn how to manage conflict, you learn how to run projects, you learn how to manage priorities, you learn how to delegate, you learn how to coach people, you learn how to do one-on-one coaching. If you learn the skills of leading and developing people, business is really easy. And because College Pro was a very fast-paced 4-month-a-year business, or we did 100% of our revenue between May 1st and August 31st, then did 8 months of zero revenue, we had to become operationally world-class at the stuff that people take for granted. But I'm dumbfounded every day with these entrepreneurs that you're like, "Oh, it's really hard to get results from my people." Well, have you ever been trained in interviewing? No, but I've interviewed 100 people. Well, maybe you've done it wrong every time, right? Like, and again, it's like baseball. Like, I didn't know until I was 50 years old that you're supposed to have your elbow up when you're getting ready. Like, I didn't know, because nobody ever showed me that before. So of course, baseball was hard for me.
You're 100% right. If you go about something the same way all the time, whether it's in sales and you're running discovery meetings, or you're a leader for the first time running one-on-ones, if you don't have any coaching or training and even know the fundamentals,
You're
you
dead.
could just pick up the wrong habits, and from a muscle memory perspective in baseball, just doing the wrong thing.
Well, this is where I get very frustrated with baby boomers and with Gen Xers is they're saying things like, oh, I have 30 years experience. No, you have 5 years experience 6 times in a row. You've just been doing the same thing now for so long that you're calling it experience, but you stopped learning 25, 30 years ago. And there's a danger in that. So I think what I tried to identify, or what I got shown very early, was here are the critical executive functioning skills that we need to be good at. And then because we didn't have years to train everybody, we were kind of taught the simplified systems on doing it all in a very predictable way. So we learned how to rate a resume. We learned how to do a first interview. We learned how to do a second interview. I learned how to do reference checks. Maybe not in a way that an MBA could write a case study, but in a way that we could very, very quickly hire 800 franchisees with very solid, predictable success, right? We knew what we were going to get out of them. And then that's carried forward in all the years of companies I've built since.
One of the things in my research of learning about you is, what is it called? Is it called the TORC, the group interview?
So, well, TORC is called the threat of reference check. Now, there's also something called the group interview that I learned from a group called Mad Science. The group interview is where you interview 6 to 8 candidates at the same time, and you ask them some random questions to suss out who are the strongest culture fit people. You're not looking for skills. You're just looking for who are the top 2 or 3 people in the room, and I'll bring them back to really do the strong skills interviews. TORC comes at the end of the process, which is the threat of reference check. So over the course of a couple interviews, group interviews, a couple of one-on-one interviews, you're going to draw out the names of people they worked for, who their favorite manager was, who their least favorite manager was, who they liked reporting to, who drove them crazy at work, who they had to fire, who was their favorite coworker, whatever it is. And then you're going to say, oh, by the way, in this next interview we're going to do next week, I need you to come back to me with these 8 names that you mentioned, and I want at least 7 of their phone numbers and email addresses. Now, the C players are going to go, well, I already gave you my 3 references. Yeah, I'm not calling those people. I want to call these 8. Your C players, you're never going to hear from them again. Your B players will probably get you 5 or 6. Your A players will give you all 8. They'll even give you the one that they hated working for, the jerk that hates them. Totally fine, man. You want to call that guy, call him too. And then what you do in that interview is you sit down and you go, okay, Damon, if I called Bob, that manager you worked for 15 years ago, what would Bob say about this core value of ours? If I called Bob, what would he say about this core value? If I called Bob, what would he say about this project that you're going to be running? And that's kind of the threat of reference check. And you go through every single person's name related to the cultural screening you're doing and the skills screening that you're doing. Your A candidates will tell you all the right stuff. They're going to say, look, he'd say I was a bit of a jerk. I probably was. And I grew. They're going to tell you the honesty, so you don't even need to do reference checks because the TORC process works.
What are some other things you're looking in there for them? Like for me, when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm looking to see if they have a victim mentality, if they're always blaming somebody else. What are some of the patterns?
What we call that is introspection. At College Pro Painters, we wanted people that blame themselves first versus an external source. So I want somebody who says, I screwed up. Here's how I screwed up. This is what I tried to do from it, versus, oh, the teacher was too hard, or the system wasn't good, or the textbook was terrible. Anybody that externalizes is always going to be blaming others. So I do look for that. That's a really good one to look for. One thing that we look for that I think is very different is I don't care if someone knows how to do something. I want to know if they've done it before. So the example that I use is a swimmer. Well, let me give you a good example. Do you know how to win an Olympic gold medal?
Have the fastest time.
Right. Have the fastest, lift the most, whatever. Have you ever won an Olympic gold medal?
No.
Right. Do you know how to do front crawl? Do you know how to do backstroke? Do you know how to do breaststroke? Yes. Have you ever competed in those? No. Have you ever broken world records? No. So why do I want someone that knows how to swim, that knows how to win a gold, versus can I go and recruit someone that has won gold medals and has competed in individual and team events and has competed in 3 or 4 of the strokes. I want someone that knows how to do it and has done it. So years ago, I was interviewing somebody and they needed to be very good at priority management and time management. They needed to be able to take a bunch of stuff, figure out the most impactful stuff, when to schedule it, what to delegate, right? Really understand time management, priority management. The guy that I was interviewing really laid it out almost like he'd read a textbook on it. But my spider senses were kind of going, I don't think he does it. And this was prior to PDAs. This was like physical daytimer land. This was like 1998. And I said, hey, do me a favor. Where's your daytimer? He goes, it's out in the car. I go, can you go grab it? And he goes, yeah, why? I said, I want to flip through it. You can just show it to me from across the table. I just want to see if everything you described on priority management and time management is being used by you. If it is, then I know that you not only know how to do it, but you do it. And he kind of hummed and hawed, and I go, just go get it. So he grabbed his coat in the middle of winter. He went out to his car, and I've never seen him since.
He was out. He's
gone because he didn't do it. And it's like, so that's why hiring an MBA is dangerous these days, is they get lots of good training, but they've never actually done the work. I would err in the favor of a good culture fit person who's done it before and has blamed themselves for their failure along the way, but they're willing to get a coach. They're willing to read a book. They're willing to go on. They're going to grind it out. They have that dog-like tenacity. That's what I would hire versus someone who has the theory.
Exactly. Theory, somebody who's a know-it-all. My book's called Learn It All Leader, and it's all about people who are open, who have the tenacity. I agree with you, but a little pushback. I know you talk a lot about Herb Keller. One of my favorite stories, though, in that book is when he talks about bringing down the rates of the flights. His board said, well, you're not going to be able to do that until we hire the best of the best from American Airlines, all these other airlines. And Herb's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hire people who have never done this before, tell them it has to get done, and then train them up to be able to do it.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with Herb Kelleher. I mean, he did a good job with building Southwest Airlines, but I would rather fly on Emirates or Qatar Airlines any day.
Yeah.
I still think that you would rather have, like Steve Jobs, when he was interviewing for the Macintosh group back in the late 80s, said if he didn't see the twinkle in their eyes, he didn't care if they had the skills. So he wanted cultural fit and skill set. I think that's kind of what you're looking for. Sure, Herb Keller, he didn't take people and train them how to be a pilot, right? They had pilots, right? They might have had gate agents that had never been a gate agent, but those are simple skills to train somebody. Those are fairly kind of early stage jobs. Like, I didn't hire people that knew how to paint houses. I hired people that were hungry. But we also realized that painting a house wasn't really the whole thing that we were doing. It was about customer service. It was about working well on a job site. It was about connecting with the housewife to get referrals. And that was having competency in painting. But we were more expensive and probably 15 or 20% worse than any of the 30-year-old Italian pros at painting houses, right? But I hired fraternity guys and sorority girls and put them in college pro shirts and gave them the basic skills to paint a house.
And what you said is really key, though, about hiring for culture fit, because look, I've been in a position before where I've seen or done myself, hired some people who are super talented, super successful, but they were just not the right culture fit. So you bring in these high performing toxic employees, and what does that typically do to the organization?
Well, it's like grandmother said, right? One bad apple spoils the whole bunch. So as soon as you end up with that bad toxic person, it spreads throughout the organization. And then management has to spend all their time managing that negative cultural person instead of actually spending time with the A players. I saw it happen years ago. I was coaching the Vancouver Canucks hockey team around culture, and their team was coaching us on bringing sports culture into 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I was the COO. And the assistant coach there, Mike Johnson, and I were talking, and we said, inside of a sports team culture, the Canucks were a very kind of level 5 leaders. They were very humble, but that drive to succeed. And they had one player on their team who just stood out as not that culture. It was Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi was a bit of a jerk. Really, Bertuzzi should have been playing for Detroit, not for Vancouver. The Sedin brothers would come off the ice and sit down with their head down, crying after every shift because they had nothing left to give. This Bertuzzi guy just didn't fit and finally got ousted from the team, and the Canucks started to play well.
if you bring somebody in who's not a culture fit and you allow them to behave the way they behave, everybody else sees that, like, why is that person getting treated this way? It's demoralizing, really.
We saw it one time at 1-800-GOT-JUNK where Brian, the CEO, said, well, we'll just give him a private office and then he won't bug people. I'm like, wow. So now the jerk gets the private office and we get to sit on the floor with everybody else. No, one bad apple. This grandma was so right. Like every single grandmotherism plays out in business today. Right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Keep your nose to the grindstone. One bad apple spoils the whole bunch. Everything that grandma told us is how you run a business.
Don't you have a book coming out about that?
I do. Grandmother's Timeless Tales on Business Success. It's really the grandmotherisms. I wasn't planning to talk about it, but yeah, it's a bit of an ode back to my grandparents who were entrepreneurs that didn't have MBAs, but they ran a very successful business and they retired at 52 years old, lived till they were in their mid 90s off of what they built a business from, because they built off of just the basics and take care of people, right? Be humble, be nice, work hard, like the basic core values that I think we somehow think we need to hire really, really smart people and ignore that common sense. You know, it's why the Blue Jays did so well. They didn't quite win in the World Series, but they weren't hitting home runs. It was basic singles and doubles, singles and doubles, singles and doubles. That minimum viable everything is how you build a product, right? How you build a business.
And they played as a team.
And they played as a team.
Back in the day, I was really good friends with Barry Bonds. I got to know him really well. And I've talked about hitting home runs and everything. After Barry was done, that's when the Giants won 3 World Series because they gelled as a unit more than just, one superstar on their own. So let me ask you this. What are some of the mistakes that these super sharp entrepreneurs or leaders make that really causes them from not growing or scaling?
One is that the leaders end up doing a lot of work instead of delegating everything except genius. So I was coaching a CEO recently and he said, I have to work on this thing. I'm like, no, that thing needs to get done. Who can you delegate it to? He's like, I don't have anybody I could delegate it to. I said, too bad. Pick someone, delegate it to them, and then let's train them using some situational leadership and some good coaching so they have the skill set to start doing that going forward. But so many leaders get stuck in the I have to do work instead of saying I have to get work done.
Is that an ego thing?
No, I think it's a habitual thing. I think it often is they're just so busy being busy. They're like the fly that if I keep working hard and I bang my head on the window enough, I'm going to get through the window, and they end up dead on the windowsill. Like there's no ego with that fly trying to get out the window. It's just trying as hard as, but no one's showing them there's an easier way. There's not a single leader or manager out there today who on the top of their to-do list has their name. It doesn't say Damon's to-do list or Cameron's. It just says to-do list. So take a look at your to-do list. Decide who can do each of those things. If you don't have anybody that can do it, pick somebody anyway, or find someone that you can outsource it to. But the leader's job is to get results through people. Even when I built College Pro Painters and I opened the West Coast of the United States for College Pro, opened Washington and Oregon, I was I wouldn't even go so far as to say an average house painter. I'd never painted a whole house. I've probably only painted 20 hours of my entire life. Maybe not even 20. But I did millions of dollars of house painting by hiring really, really good people and deploying them and keeping the culture up, right? Building a little more than a business, a little bit less than a religion, and then getting out of their way.
Do you find it hard, though, to delegate something to somebody that maybe you're not strong at and help them learn how to grow to be good at it?
No, because you can find a mentor that can be good at that, right? Like I can get a coach. If I'm going to get my kid to join Little League Baseball, I know well enough that I shouldn't be coaching my kid, so I'll get one of the coaches to coach my kid. There's plenty, even when we were scaling 1-800-GOT-JUNK, the last real business that I scaled, when I was the COO, I had a formal mentor. Greg Johnson was being groomed as the COO at Starbucks. Brian was being mentored. Roman, our head of IT, was being mentored by Boris, who was the head of IT at Abe Books, a company that sold for hundreds of millions to Amazon. Hendra, our VP of Finance, was being mentored by the head of finance at Business Objects. Shirley, the head of our call center, was being managed by the head of the call center at WestJet, which is the Canadian version of Southwest Airlines. Like I still remember the names of the mentors of each of our members of the leadership team because we didn't have the skills to grow them, but we knew how to find the people that could help grow them. We even reached out to outsourced mentors to help us interview people for really core roles that we didn't have the skills to know if they had this. Like when we were hiring a CFO, we're like, I don't know if this guy knows what he's. I don't even know what CFO does his job. So we got our auditor, we got our head accountant, and we got one of the mentors from Business Objects to do the skills interviews for the CFOs. What Brian and myself and Hendra did was we interviewed for the cultural fit to see how they would gel with the rest of the leadership team. Did we like them, right? Could we push their buttons and get them pissed off? We interviewed for that stuff. And then we brought someone in. So no, I think that's an excuse people look for.
It's true. If you're not an expert in finance or you're not an expert in marketing, then bring somebody else in who could have a conversation with them to better understand and speak their language.
It goes back to a saying that there's not a single problem in business that exists that writing a check can't solve. So if you focus on bringing in more revenue and gross margin, you can buy your way out of every problem by hiring experts to help you out.
I think they say that in Who's Not Now? If you have money, there's not a problem you can't solve.
Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, two friends of mine, wrote the book Who Not How. Exactly right.
Fabulous book. It's all about, like you said, figuring out what your strengths are, what you're passionate about, and delegating out the rest. A lot of our listeners are relatively new managers, right? They're high performers. Yep. They've moved into a leadership role for the first time, and they want to come across as super smart and I got this. How do you help them kind of give up some of that control, so to speak, and be able to win through their team?
Okay, well, there's a couple parts of that. One is wanting to appear super smart. One is to be like taking on more responsibility, the kind of I got this. I think there's also some strength and vulnerability and letting them know that it's okay to say, I want to take this on, but I might need some help with it. Because every single leader is human, is fallible, is screwing up, is trying to figure out this thing called life, right? We're all just walking each other home. So when a young leader can realize like, oh, you know what, I suck at this, but I want to do it anyway, that's actually a strength versus being found out later that you have no idea what you're doing. We had at one point in our call center, the head of our call center was really struggling with some recruiting. He was way behind on his numbers. The call center didn't report to me in these days. It still reported to Brian. And I pulled Brian, the CEO, aside and I said, you know what? I don't think he knows how to do recruiting. I think he's stuck because he's never done it. He goes, no, he ran the call center at Business Objects. I'm like, can I go and coach him a little bit and see? Because I've done it. He goes, yeah, go coach him. So I go over and I go, I'm not going to use his name, but have you ever done any of this recruiting before? He goes, no. I'm like, well, when you were at Business Objects and you needed 20 more people, what did you do? He goes, I'd call HR and say, I need 20 more salespeople and they'd be there on Monday. I'm like, so you just trained them? He goes, yeah, they did the recruiting and interviewing and hiring. I was good at the training. I'm like, fuck, it's no wonder you don't know how to do this. He goes, do you want some help? He goes, I would love some help. So I literally coached him, right, using situational leadership. 3 months later, the call center started to report to me as well. But the problem wasn't the leader. The problem was the person leading the leader, right? We didn't actually know. And the problem for Rodan was he didn't have the comfort level to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. Which would have been stronger for him to have said that 6 weeks earlier before all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, you're way weaker than we thought you were.
Now, Cameron, was that the fault of the leader because they didn't create a safe enough environment?
We were in really, really hyper growth. It was probably that there wasn't enough time being spent with someone, and there was probably more of an assumption that they knew what they were doing versus slowing down and saying, on a project by project basis, what's the person's skill level and commitment level? On project 2, what's their skill level and commitment level? So really applying situational leadership to each of the projects. So I don't think it was an unsafe environment. I just don't think Brian was good at situational leadership. I think he was better at delegating and abdicating, really. Which is why the whole call center ended up starting to report to me later on, as well as all the other areas.
So sticking with situational leadership, that's like your core focus, right? You're investing in learning training that you do?
So the training is called Invest in Your Leaders. The number one skill that is taught to every senior leader at Starbucks, and this is the C-level and senior VP level, is situational leadership. It's the book, The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard and Dr. Paul Hersey, is based on the concept of situational leadership. I've just always believed that the ability to adapt your style on a situation by situation basis is what gets results through others. So then coaching falls off that, delegation falls off that, priority management, time management, kind of the linchpin for all of those skills. Like if I was coaching you on baseball, I probably wouldn't coach you on any of the skills of like holding a bat and like, you know how to do all that. But I might coach you on mindset, or I might coach you on fitness, or I might coach you on team building, or raising the energy of the group, or getting through adversity. But I'm not going to coach you on the skill that you're already good at.
So one thing I think is important is that you're not talking about learning everybody's unique way they like to be coached. What you're saying is you're basing it on the actual project and situation.
Correct. So situational leadership is based on two things. What's their skill level and what's their commitment level on that individual project? When you're talking about people's learning styles, then they have like either an auditory, a visual, or a kinesthetic learning style. So they learn by watching, by listening, or by doing. So yes, you want to adapt your training in that way. And then people also go through a cycle of learning where they go through the abstract conception, right? Learning about an idea. Then they go through practicing, or the active experimentation. Then they go into the day-to-day of doing it, which is the concrete experience. And then they learn from thinking about it, which is the reflective observation. So you kind of build all of those things into your normal training programs. But I'm getting a little bit more complex on that. But yeah, what a leader needs to be good at is just adapting their style. Very similar. You've got kids. How old are your kids now?
8 and 4.
Okay, perfect. Your 4-year-old, do you teach your 8-year-old how to pour milk the same way you teach your 4-year-old? No.
No, of course not.
Right? And your 4-year-old, when they pour milk, you go, good job pouring the milk, right?
Absolutely.
When your 8-year-old pours the milk, you don't cheer them on at all because they'd be like, Dad, I've been pouring milk for 3 years. Like, what are you doing? When your 8-year-old rides a bicycle, do you go, good job, good job? No, because they've been riding a bicycle for 3 years. But you're running after the 4-year-old on the bicycle, cheering them on like crazy. Because there's a different style that's necessary on that. And then as your 4-year-old becomes 14, you no longer cheer them on anymore because they have the skills and the confidence to actually do what they're doing. So a senior person coming into a company, they could be like the head of a 200-person call center. They've run call centers their whole time. The first month they're with your company, they're kind of scared of screwing up. They want to be liked. They're all 15-year-olds trapped in adult bodies. They want to be liked by the leadership team. They want to be liked by their direct reports. They're trying to learn all these new systems and these weird acronyms that you've got. So they need a different style of leadership from you. But what we tend to do is dump them into their area and let them sink or swim. So when a leader is good at situational leadership, you remove all of those problems. You remove the risk of failure. We had to be good at it at College Pro Painters because we only had 17 weeks to do 100% of our revenue. If we were off by 1 or 2 weeks, 1 week was 6.5% of our year. You missed by 2 weeks, that's 13. That's your entire operating margin is gone. So we didn't have the luxury of, oh, well, we'll see how they do for a month. No, that was 25% of our summer was gone after a month.
So what advice do you have for a leader who promotes somebody into a management role to help remove some of those obstacles early on to help them become successful?
Make sure that you focus with them on the critical few things that they have to be working on. Make sure that you really indoctrinate them into the culture of your company so they understand the core values, your core purpose, your history of your organization, that they understand the people, like really, really indoctrinate them into your whole culture. And then just, create that kind of open door environment where you just ask them, hey, on this project, what do you need from me? Do you need some more support? Do you need some more guidance? Do you need problem solving? Do you want me to cheer you on? If you can't figure out what they need, ask them what they need. Like when I go to my now 22 and 24-year-old kids, I go, what do you need from me? They go, I got it, Dad, I'm good. But every once in a while, they're like, actually, I need to brainstorm, right? My youngest son's running his own business right now or even when he was running his second marathon, he finally came to me about 2 days before his final marathon. He said, "Hey, can you give me a couple tips on prep for the marathon?" I go, "Yeah." But when he wasn't ready to learn, there's no point in me coaching him.
I mean, that's one of the keys right there in the interview process, though, right? Is trying to identify people who are ready to learn, especially in this day and age with AI, which we could talk about in a minute. If you're not open to learning, unlearning, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah. So you got to hire people that already read personal development books, hire people that already read business books, hire people that listen to podcasts on business growth. Those are people that are more apt to want to learn. Hire people like, if you want team players, hire people that played team sports. They're team players.
Do you find that as people get more senior and more successful, that they're less likely to be open to learning? Because they feel like I hit my peak?
No, I think it's I think the learner controls the environment. So the learner controls learning. You have to get them to trip and fall to realize that they then want to learn again. So there's a bit of you got to create a gap. So if you've got somebody senior in their role, you give them a bigger project that they've never done before, and they go, "Yeah, I don't know how to do this one," right? Or you stretch them for a bigger goal that they haven't been able to do before. That might be a bigger one. Or you show them there's a new technology tool they've never used before that they realize, "Yeah, I don't know how to do this." It's also, if you hire, as you mentioned in the interview process, people that are culturally always wanting to learn, you'll get an 80-year-old wanting to learn from a 20-year-old because they also know the 20-year-old is going to want to learn from them too. You know, a 20-year-old can teach a baby boomer how to use technology, but a baby boomer can teach the 20-year-old about wisdom and leadership.
And wouldn't you say that those are the kind of cultures that are excelling right now, is that they have 4 or 5 different generations and they're able to learn and work with each other?
And they're doing it for the good of the core values, the core purpose, the BHAG, the vivid vision. They're all kind of locked and loaded and working together as a team. There's no, I use the analogy of American football, that you've got kind of the wide receiver for the New England Patriots. You know, is the most important team for the wide receiver, offensive team, defensive team, special teams? Right? What's the most important team for the wide receiver of the Patriots?
The offensive team.
No, the Patriots.
Oh, the Patriots.
It's a trick question.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Well, and what I get is every player on the team realizes the most important team is the team. The second most important team is the kind of team they play on. So the wide receiver's second most important team is the offense, but his most important team is the Patriots.
Oh, I get
right?
it. Yeah, I get
We're going to fight for the good of the team first, and then I'm going to fight. So the head of marketing's most important team isn't marketing. It's the company. Marketing second. The head of finance most important team is the company. Finance second. And when we build that culture that we're all in this together, that what we're fighting for is for the good of the vision, the good of the core values. We're not arguing with each other. We're arguing to build this together. Then it gets easy.
I think that's a great point. I was literally just having a conversation the other day with a client, and she was talking about how the team leaders tend to put their team ahead of the organization, us against them, and that's really eroding their culture.
It's destroying it. It's politics, silos, and turf wars. Pat Lencioni's book. It's exactly what it's about. So I would just use that analogy of the sports team or the football team forever, because it just kind of makes sense to me, right? And whenever you see someone fighting for their business area, you need to remind them that's not their most important team. As Jim Collins used to say, the first team is the leadership team. The second team is your functional area.
Yeah, because if you don't, then you're going to create disruption throughout the organization.
This is why leadership has to be really good at being able to have a debate and arguing, but not in front of all the kids. There has to be a space for leadership to argue and debate and look at the data and talk about facts and feelings and restrainers and drivers and come to consensus. So then they walk out of a room as a team, but they've left all the debate in the room. There can't be any, "Oh, well, I disagreed with that decision." Well, then get back in the room and keep disagreeing until you all come out with consensus.
If you're working with an organization or a CEO, and they tell you exactly that they get in a room, they argue, but then it lingers with them when they get out. How do you shift that mindset? How do you set up those meetings? You set ground rules up front of like, this is what's going to happen here, and then it's going to stay here.
You go back to your core values and you show the people the core values that they're breaking. So if I go back to college pro painters, and it's weird that I can remember them 40 years later, but our 4 core values: deliver what you promise, respect the individual, pride in all you do, and find a better way. So if I'm leaving a meeting saying, well, I didn't really agree with that, do I have pride in the way I'm behaving? Am I being respectful of the other people in the room? Could we not find a better way to handle this so I don't have to come out with that? Like, I'm breaking basically 3 of the 4 core values. And then what you have to do is sit down with a person one by one, and you got to have a bit of that come to Jesus meeting where you say, either you change and start living these core values, or you get to go work somewhere else like the post office, but we will only have people here who live the core values. Full stop.
And part of the reason why you remember these core values, and I've heard you say, is that core values shouldn't be one word. They got to be little phrases. And I think that's a lot of organizations make that mistake.
Well, then you also have to be willing to fire people who break the core values. So I'll give a story. 1989, I was sitting in a meeting, and this guy won't mind me telling the story. His name was Kevin Carter. We're good friends to this day. Kevin was being really rude to one of the women in the office. He would have been hauled out in the whole Me Too era with what he was saying. Like, he was just being a crude 1980s dude in a meeting. And I'm like, Kevin, respect the individual, right? Deliver what you promise, respect the individual, pride in all you do. I'm like, Kevin, respect the individual. And he turned around and he's like, don't call me on the core values. And then he walked into his office and slammed the door. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm totally getting fired. Like, I'm totally getting fired for calling my boss out on a core value in front of everybody else. So I sit there working. 10 minutes later, he opens the door. Cameron. I'm like, oh shit, here it comes.
Here it comes.
I walk into his office. He's like, close the door. I close the door and I stand there and he goes, don't ever call me on the core values. And then I don't know where it came from, but I instantly said, then don't break them.
What do you say to that?
That was it. There was no discussion. There was no debate. There was nowhere to go. And he went, fuck.
Did you change after that?
Yes. And that's probably why we're friends to this day, and why Julie Kinnear, the woman who was being treated wrong, because we called it for the good of the company and for the good of the core values. And it wasn't, Kevin, you're being a dick. It was, Kevin, don't break the core value. And when the core values are that important, there's nowhere to hide. It's not like you go to church and you break 3 of the things and you got to go say a bunch of Hail Marys and then everything's good again. No, don't do it. You just don't break the commandments. You don't get to say a bunch of prayers and come back again. And I think if companies truly believe in the core values and they hire people who live them and they celebrate them and they praise them and they thank people and they train people, business is really simple.
Now, do you think business is going to be really simple, shifting gears here, with the AI disruption that's happening?
You know, if the rate of change outside your business is greater than the rate of change inside your business, you're out of business. So we have to adapt or die, right? Businesses are going to have to adapt or die. Businesses are going to have to learn this new technology, but they will. And business will probably get simpler in many ways because there'll be less employees. We'll be able to leverage technology. We'll be able to automate and optimize our workflow. I mean, I remember walking into 1-800-GOT-JUNK in October of 2000, 20 years ago with a laptop, and Brian said, what are you going to do, carry that from meeting to meeting? And I went, yeah. 2 days later, he bought a laptop. But then our head of IT said, well, you can't use Wi-Fi in here. I'm like, I'll get someone smart to hook up the Wi-Fi for us. And we had Wi-Fi a week later. You just have to learn the tools. But imagine running a business today without using a laptop, without using, a project management tool or email software. Like, it's just a tool. We're going to learn the different AI tools that will allow us to work. And the people that don't will either get replaced or they'll go work for the post office and government are always going to hire. Right. So there'll always be a place for them to go.
Where do you see most organizations at when it comes to their AI readiness?
Most? I would say are way, way, way behind the curve. I'd say that the 1 to 10 percenters are the ones that have, like our COO, I run an organization called the COO Alliance. So I have a large network of second in commands. We have a different speaker every month come in and present on AI. And I'd say we're behind. We've been doing it for almost 2 years. I have different business units doing a book report every Monday where they share one thing that they used AI for that week just to share with the group to learn from osmosis, right? Because we just don't know what all these tools can do. So let's just start sharing what we're doing with them. I think that's kind of like cost of entry stuff, right? We just hired a company to come in now to train my 3 key people on some AI automation tools so that they can actually start automating some of the workflows and stuff with AI. I think most companies are not even thinking about it, or they think that AI is just ChatGPT. There's a dashboard called There Is an AI for that. Have you seen this?
No, but I've heard you talk about it, so I can check it out. 39,000 tools, right?
Yeah, there is thousands of different tools that exist to do thousands of different AI or jobs. And if people are talking about ChatGPT and Grok, there's dozens that you can be using inside of your company. I think people are way behind. My 22-year-old was using ChatGPT a year before I knew it existed because he was writing his essays in university with it. I think you got to get a bunch of people that are younger coming in and showing you how to use some of these tools.
You just brought up a good point. You hire these young kids who are already doing it, but also I think it's kind of up to the leaders to model some of that behavior and share back what they're doing.
Well, and it's also just creating it. So there's an AI for that. 42,000 different AI tools for 11,826 different tasks. I think it's also creating a bit of a mindset inside the organization. The leadership's job is to create a mindset that we have to adapt or die, right? If the rate of change outside your business is greater than the rate of change inside your business, you're out of business. If you're a person working in a company and you're not using 3 or 4 or 5 different AI tools in the next month or two, you're probably going to be replaced by someone who is. So AI won't replace you. Someone using AI will replace you. So we have to create that. And then tell me what you need. Do you need training? Do you need videos? Do you need ideas? Do you need an AI work group? Do you need confidence? Do you need some skills training? I saw a CEO 15 years ago sitting in business class on a plane, typing with 2 fingers. I'm like, wow, if I was on your board, I would fire your ass in 15 minutes. You'd be gone. Like if you're a CEO of a company typing like this, you can't be the CEO of my company.
Hey, Cameron, I got a good buddy, literally just texted me before this. He's a COO of a big crypto firm. We got to get him into the COO Alliance. He didn't know I was talking to you, but his question for me was, how do I get my EA ramped up on AI skills? What advice would you give him?
There's a group called EAO, which is the EA organization. Victoria Rubin is the founder of that. I would see if they're still in existence. I would have her go online and just start watching a YouTube video a day. Like, just go on YouTube and look AI tools for EAs is a starting point. We have a company that we're talking to about as a potential partner. I'm not going to give you the name of them yet, but I would look for companies that can come in and do some mentoring and training and teaching, and then have him train not just her, but others in the organization. But working on the business instead of in the business, right? People shouldn't feel bad about spending 20 minutes a day watching YouTube videos, a bit different AI tools to do their job. Go on the dashboard. There's an AI for that, and just look up by category some of the different work that you're doing and look at the different AI tools that are there, and then watch a video about them. Like people that are spending time learning, that is part of your 8 hours a day. It's the classic Stephen Covey, sharpen the saw, right? Stop cutting down the tree, sit back, sharpen all the blades of your saw, and you're going to be a lot more effective. But people tend to think that, oh, if I'm not working, then I'm not getting anything done. If I'm on YouTube learning about AI, then I'm not getting anything done. No, that's actually the most important thing you're doing. So create that half hour a day or hour a day where all you're doing is watching more YouTube videos about different AI tools that exist to help you do your job.
Yeah, it's funny. Change your mindset, whether it's learning or just thinking about your business instead of, running the hamster wheel. What we try to get our clients to do, we call it learning time off. People have paid time off, schedule learning time off where their team members can set aside 30 minutes to an hour or 2 hours for our classes or whatever, but make that part of the culture, part of the environment,
Totally.
and people feel comfortable to do it.
I had to talk to some COOs who felt bad about taking 2 hours a month to come to a COO Alliance event. I'm like, trust me, your CEO wants you at that event. They want you growing your confidence, your connections, your skills. Like, they don't want you doing work. They want you becoming more productive so you can they want you sharpening the saw.
You talk about this a lot, skills, confidence, and connections. Where does the connections piece fit into that? Why is that so important?
Well, and you mentioned the book earlier, The Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. The only reason I know the two authors is I was in two different masterminds that they were both members of the masterminds. Dan Sullivan was a member of Genius Network, as was Ben Hardy. I was also a member of Strategic Coach, which is Dan Sullivan's group. So I got to know them because I was sitting in the room with them. So my connections help me to know the who's to do the work. So I don't have to know how to do something. I have to know someone that can help me to do that thing. Right? I was at an event in Hilton Head, South Carolina back in October, met a woman who is incredible in AI. We're kind of vetting her company right now to see if she'll be a partner for all of our COO Alliance clients. If she's the one that we think she's going to be, me being at that event for 3 days gave me the one key person that's like a linchpin that opens everything. It's that saying that small hinges swing big doors, right? You need to know that one key person that can then help bring AI into your organization and not overcomplicate things, but can simplify things.
Yeah, so it's not all about, like you said, being stuck doing the work. Get out, build the connections, build the skills, and the learning and unlearning. Let's talk a little bit about where are you spending most of your time at right now? Is it coaching, keynoting, get your another books coming out?
No, yeah. So I have revenue coming in from lots of areas. My core focus is scaling the COO Alliance. So it's this global mastermind community of second in commands. That's the core. Secondary focus would be my Invest in Your Leaders course and just making sure we have more and more companies globally using that. But the coaching and the speaking, book revenue, that stuff all just kind of happens, but it's not the focus for sure. I was coaching CEOs 18 years ago, so I get coaching clients, but that's not the core of what I focus on.
I mean, that's going to change pretty much with AI. Is your avatar ready?
It is, and I think in the next day or two it will be askcameron.ai, and that'll go to my avatar. The video version of that should be up in February. 99% of business coaches, personal coaches, therapists, they'll be gone within 18 months. I did a 1-hour therapy session with Grok about 6 months ago, like marriage counseling, that blew my mind. Oh, it was fantastic. Like an audio, it was great.
I have to admit, sometimes when my wife and I get in an argument, I'll turn to ChatGPT or Claude or something, and I'll just have a voice conversation like, give me 3 reasons why my wife is right in the situation and I'm wrong. And it literally blows your mind with some of the feedback it gives you.
Yeah. Mine was, I wanted to kind of go deeper into a couple areas of my relationship with my wife. And I said, ask me 10 questions, one at a time, that go deeper and layer off of my prior answers. And I kind of gave it a couple little prompts. Holy moly, man. It was freaking amazing. So yeah, in the business coaching world, like all of my 6 books, all my speaking events, all my YouTube videos, everything is already part of my AI avatar. And I'm giving that away where people can just ask questions and just ask me. So yeah, why would anyone want to pay me $3,000 an hour to coach them when they can ask my avatar for free?
And so do you think that the human skills learning or coaching is going to move to more of a mastermind cohort approach?
It's going to be more about spending time with others that then can kind of connect all those dots. It is very much going to be the who, not how. Right? I don't have to know how to do stuff. I have to know the who's that can help me do the stuff. And the ability then to vet some of those introductions too, right? Don't just take the introduction and run with it. Like still interview them and check and make sure they're the right culture fit and the right person and the right skills for what you really need. Because sometimes you get an intro and it's not entirely what you're looking for.
Yeah, they talk about that in the Who Not How book, where they said that not all introductions or connections are worth it. Is it something that you can give to them, they can give to you, and kind of go through, like you said, that interview process a little bit?
Well, and sometimes the introduction is made like I have a friend of mine, I was looking to get some help on LinkedIn a few years ago. And this friend, I'm not going to use his name, said, well, you should talk to so-and-so. And I was like, awesome. And then my spider senses were just like, let me ask you a quick question. I said, how long have you been working with him? He said, oh, we're just starting. And I said, okay, I'm going to circle back in 90 days. Tell me in 90 days how it's going. 60 days later, he called me back. I was like, yeah, don't use that guy on LinkedIn. He's terrible. No, he wasn't trying to give me a bad person. He was trying to help. But had I not asked that question, like, yeah.
Not to get off on a tangent here, but that was one of the things I had about reading Who, Not How. It's like, how do you help vet the who's to make sure you're aligning with the right people?
Run them through your normal interview process. Run them through a culture screening. Have a job posting that scares half those people away and has the other half saying, I want to work with a company like you. Treat a freelancer or an outsourced company or, a supplier like you're treating an employee. Interview them, grill them, check them, see what they're like. Talk to prior customers.
Cameron, thank you so much. You were awesome. Where can our listeners connect with you at?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is my main website is CameronHerold.com, and it's HEROLD. So CameronHerold.com has links to my Invest in Your Leaders, my podcast, all my books, COO Alliance. All the links are right there. Very easy to sort through.
And listeners, before we go, I want to leave you with a challenge. I want you to try at least one thing that you learned today. Let's say it's delegating. I want you to look at your calendar, your to-do list, and delegate one thing that you've been holding on for too long. I love what Cameron said, that you should delegate everything but your genius. And when you delegate something to somebody else, it empowers them and it's a great learning opportunity for them. Something else you can try is carve out some real learning time. I call it LTO, but find at least 30 minutes on your calendar, both for yourself and for your team. Whether it's watching a YouTube video, a podcast, that should be considered work time because it's all about learning and growing. Also, find 2 hours and take a Learn It class. Or finally, try a new AI tool. Cameron and I talked about, we left it in show notes, the website that has thousands of different AI tools. Try something new, share it with your team, maybe even set up a book club or a mastermind with a group and share different tools and what you got out of it and how it helps you become more successful. All right, everybody, this was a great episode. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the Learn It All podcast. And until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and have a great day.
Burnout is chronic, prolonged stress. And I would dare to say that each and everyone has had chronic, prolonged stress over the last several years. And so it's extra important.